Hey, I'd like to introduce you to yourself. This is the Seeking SELFDOM Going Deeper podcast, and I'm your host, Akello Stone.
We know suffering is a natural part of life, yet when it happens to us or someone we care about, we believe it's unfair. Dealing with it can become debilitating. What process of thinking can we use to begin to accept and overcome suffering?
You know, that whole idea of certain things in life are so unfair. I never really bought into the idea that there was anything called fairness. So we kind of have to abandon that idea that things are either fair or unfair. That's a really polarized view. Good, bad, up, down, right? There's this whole idea that we're missing this whole chunk, this whole gradation, and it really applies to everything. But as it relates to suffering, there is suffering in your life that will happen. You don't know when, you don't know how you're going to react to that. And I think you really want to, when it's not happening, I think we spend time in kind of the delusion of the continuity of happiness. There's going to be suffering. Does that mean that you have to wallow in the suffering before it happens? No, but I think you have to come to this idea that it will happen and really get yourself prepared to have some very healthy coping mechanisms for when things go down, as they will. Not like something happens by surprise, but it doesn't mean that you have to live in this kind of daily existence where we're waiting for that thing to happen and the shoe is going to drop on the other foot or something like that. That's like people who, like living in California, there's always people that think that we're constantly thinking about the earthquake happening. I mean, I've obviously spent time thinking about when a big earthquake happens, where would I go? How would I protect myself? What would I dig through the rubble and find? I go that far with it, but I don't spend time, like I said, wallowing in it. I know that it's there. I have some sense of a mental plan if it does happen. And then I've kind of filed that away. It's kind of like a filing cabinet, right? So when something does happen, you can pull that file and you have a little bit of mental preparation, maybe some strategic preparation for that. But don't deny that it's going to exist, and don't be angry that it's going to exist, because suffering is going to happen throughout our lives. It's part of life, kind of like death is part of life, and people don't want to face that. They're in denial about that.
Which techniques do you find help you to stay present?
I don't really have techniques per se, but one thing that I do find myself is self-assessing. Where am I not here? I'll be honest. There'll be moments in time where I'm completely not paying attention to anything that's happening in the present moment, and I kind of go somewhere momentarily. I don't know if it's kind of like daydreaming, right? And then I'll come back, and then I'll wonder, where did I go, and what did I gain from that mental escape or that mental disconnection from the moment? And I'm talking about like watching a film, and then like maybe 2 minutes go by, and I realize I had not even watched or listened to, and I have to rewind. And I do that with books. I'll read several paragraphs, and then I'll be like, I have no idea what I just read. It takes me a long time to read because I do that. I don't know if I take the ideas and start to synthesize them immediately. I'm not really sure. I don't have an explanation for that. But what I do have an explanation for, or a description of a technique, is when I find myself not being present and then I bring myself back to the present, I create this present-minded awareness. And present-minded awareness to me is not like I'm always present, I'm always present, I'm always present. It means when you find yourself no longer present in the immediate moment, the immediate situation, then you bring yourself back. It's constantly bringing yourself back to the present moment over and over and over and over again. And I figure another 10 or 15 years and It may feel a little bit more automatic, but I'm working at it. Again, I'm a work in progress, as we all are. But being awareness is always the first step. And, if it helps you, you could put little Post-it notes around the house that says, are you present? Do you feel present? Are you are you in this moment? But then when you have the opportunity, when you're in the moment and particularly with someone, like I tend to feel most present when I'm with someone, interacting with them, experiencing that moment. But when I'm alone, my thoughts tend to drift. And I know a lot of us right now at this time are alone, so we may be drifting off somewhere and then come back to the present, So it's awareness. It's thinking about it. It's, consciously making efforts to bring yourself back to this present moment, like we are right now.
We often hear you need to love yourself first, but what does that really mean? What are the essential components of self-love?
Self-love is a tricky thing. A lot of times it's kind of thrown around like it's some type of campaign for a moisturizer or whatever, Like loving yourself and pretending to love yourself and performing love for yourself, they all look like the same thing, right? A lot of times love that we experience in the world comes from someone else. We receive that love, and many times we reciprocate that love. But it's coming from the outside. And perhaps we can start there by building a little self-love, by capitalizing and, exponentially increasing the love that other people give to us, or reminding ourselves of the love that other people have for us. And if we do that and we trust that person and we find that person to be authentic and real, then we have to say there must be something about myself that's lovable because these people love me. And then the second kind of aspect, I think, of self-love is spending more time with yourself. Maybe doing things that you'd normally do with someone else. Put the phone away, put social media away, and just sit with yourself and think about the qualities about yourself that you find appealing in other people. Think about what do you love about other people, and oftentimes the things we love about other people are the things that we should start to turn love in towards ourselves. But conversely, there's things that we despise about other people, and oftentimes those are things that we despise about ourselves. So if we find some attribute in someone else that we find within ourselves, there you go. If that's something that you would like to work on and resolve, which means going into why that exists and why do I think about it that way, how can I turn that around? Self-love is a more complicated than people think. And I don't think it's something that immediately happens. But it also starts really early, though. If you were raised and you were never taught and even influenced or steered or guided in the direction of self-love, then you become an adult and you be like, that sounds like, what is self-love? That sounds like some narcissism. That sounds like some weird kind of new age, confidence building strategy. So, as an adult, you may be resistant to that. So buy into it in a way that feels right for you, not because it feels comfortable for someone else. Does that make sense? You probably can't answer that because it's kind of a monologue. But thanks again for listening to Seeking Selfdom, Going Deeper. I hope you continue to listen to this podcast, and I hope there's something of relevance and importance that you find in the ideas shared here. Peace.